I typically have several messages that I need to record, and I never really know how I'm going to start the message. But this one right here, I was reminded of something recently where someone was seeking closure and another person was giving advice regarding how easy it is to get closure. Getting closure is as simple as you closing the door, even if someone else closed the door on you. Because sometimes people are trying to figure things out. And a lot of times it's not even worth trying to figure out. Just simply close the door, turn things over to the Lord, ask Him to heal you, and move on. And yes, I understand, a lot of times it's easier said than done. But sometimes people seek closure, and all they get is a reopening of a wound. Or sometimes the wound is superficial, and the closure that they seek only makes things worse. So getting closure is as simple as you closing the door, even if someone else closed the door on you. And don't try to figure it out. If something's over, it is over. Because the other person may have a thought like about this message, and the thought is, we have nothing to speak about. So like one person may want closure, it's like, we have nothing to speak about. But this message is about, we have nothing to talk about. It is not necessarily about relationships. It is about judgment. The Lord has a history of warning. But when He stops warning, that is it. For some, there'll be no warnings because they've already been warned. The line has already been drawn in the sand, and the moment they choose to go across that line, they're going to be dealt with hastily. And two examples, the beast and the false prophet, and Satan. In Revelation 19, verse 20, it reads, "And the beast was taken, and with him the false prophet that wrought miracles before him, with which he deceived them that had received the mark of the beast, and them that worshipped his image. These both were cast alive into a lake of fire burning with brimstone." The chapter starts off by letting us know the Lord comes back with His army to wage war against His enemies and to judge. And here are just two of His enemies, but we don't see Him opening the book of life. We just see them being tossed into the lake of fire and brimstone. Meaning there's nothing to talk about. They don't need to try to present a case. They don't need to try to present defense. They don't need to try to present counter arguments. They don't need to beg for mercy. There's nothing to talk about. It's just done. And as a result, their judgment would be to get tossed directly into the lake of fire and brimstone. After that time, the devil, he'll be bound and sealed in a bottomless pit for 1,000 years. He'll be loose for a short season. Then he will rage or wage war against the Lord. And he already knows, you do this, it's going to be the last thing you do. So in this case, there's nothing to talk about. Because in Revelation 20, starting verse 10, it states, "And the devil that deceived them was cast into the lake of fire and brimstone." Oh. Let me back up. In Revelation 19:20, it states, "These both were cast alive." Alive. They're not killed, but they're tossed in alive. It's like how some people, when they're cooking crabs or lobster, they don't kill the crab or lobster, they just throw it into the boiling pot. So these both were cast alive into a lake of fire, burning with brimstone. So now back to Revelation 20, starting verse 10. "And the devil that deceived them was cast into the lake of fire and brimstone, where the beast and false prophet are, and shall be tormented day and night forever and ever." When does the devil get tried? Doesn't he get to appeal his case? No. And especially after being tossed into a bottomless pit for 1,000 years. He has 1,000 years to think about his actions. He has 1,000 years to repent. He has 1,000 years to not do what has been written that he will do. But he does it anyhow. So there's nothing to talk about. He just gets tossed into the lake of fire and brimstone. Others, things are different. Because I continue reading. And I saw a great white throne, and him that sat on it, from whose face the earth and heaven fled away. And there was found no place for them. And I saw the dead, small and great, stand before God. And the books were opened, and another book was opened, which is the book of life. And the dead were judged out of those things which were written in the books, according to their works. So we see people getting judged. But for the beast, the false prophet, and later Satan, no questions. They're just tossed into the lake of fire and brimstone. See, with them, there's nothing to talk about. Nothing they have to say that the Lord wants to hear. Nothing. But for others, not the same. And the sea gave up the dead which were in it, and death and hell delivered up the dead which were in them, and they were judged, every man according to their works. And death and hell were cast into the lake of fire and brimstone, or in the lake of fire. This is the second death. And whosoever was not found written in the book of life was cast into the lake of fire. So for them, it's like there's something to talk about. What difference is it going to make? It kind of ties into the argument of seeking closure at the end of a relationship. Or even trying to seek closure if you get fired from a job. So for some, there'll be nothing to talk about. It is finished. Nothing to talk about. And there's nothing the beast, the false prophet, or Satan that they may have to say, because all they'll try to do is delay the inevitable, and the Lord does not want to hear it. Straight into lake of fire and brimstone. And it may seem unjust, where the Lord is basically communicating to them, we have nothing to talk about. It may seem unjust, but it is not. In John 16 verse 5, the Lord said, But now I go my way to him that sent me, and none of you asketh me, Whither goest thou? But because I have said these things unto you, sorrow hath filled your heart. Nevertheless, I tell you the truth. It is expedient for you that I go away. For if I go not away, the Comforter will not come unto you. But if I depart, I will send him unto you. And when he is come, he will reprove the world of sin, and of righteousness, and of judgment. Of sin, because they believed, or they believed not on me. Of righteousness, because I go to my Father, and ye see me no more. Of judgment, because the prince of this world is judged. Court cases have different phases, and it depends on the type of court case. In criminal proceedings, a person may be found guilty, and there's going to be sentencing, which is going to be a little bit later. Some people are in pretrial confinement. Others may be out on bail. And when a person is convicted, the person may have some time to get his or her affairs in order prior to sentencing. But once a person is sentenced, that is it. The beast, the false prophet, and Satan, they've all been judged. They've all been judged. and there'll be nothing to talk about. It's not like they're going to be able to beg the judge for mercy. Nope. And at the same time, the Lord doesn't need any victim impact statements. He already knows. And those three, they're going to be held accountable for a lot. For every soul that they had a part of taking down to the pits of hell. They're going to pay. And they know. And a part of their condemnation, especially the devil, is because he knows where he's going. And rather than trying to be on his best behavior, he's been trying to take souls to hell so that they can get sent to the lake of fire and brimstone with him. That's a part of his condemnation. So in the grand scheme of things, on the day of their sentencing, which a lot of times sentencing day is more accurate for them than judgment day, but on the day of their sentencing, they're already guilty. No one needs to say anything. They'll be tossed into the lake of fire and brimstone. And for the beast and false prophet, it states they'll be tossed alive into the lake of fire and brimstone. There'll be nothing to talk about. So as the Lord said, the prince of this world is already judged, which means there's nothing to talk about. Especially because he knew what his judgment is, and it didn't stop him from his wicked ways. So like some relationships, there's nothing to talk about. In a sense, because the talking was done before, and either the other person listened or didn't. And sometimes because the person wouldn't listen, the other was like, okay, I can show you much better than I've been telling you. So I pray this message blesses you. Whether it's for some relationship that you had, and the same thing where if you're in a position where you made a decision and the other person's trying to get you to give him or her closure, where no closure is necessary, that you don't feel guilty because you already closed the case. And sometimes all the other person's trying to do is to slide back into a situation that he or she knows has no place being in. But for the devil, the beast and the false prophet, there's nothing to talk about. You have been judged. And as the Lord said, it is finished.